In Unit 2.3, we're going to be learning about deductive reasoning and the laws of detachment and syllogism. In 2.1, we learned about inductive reasoning. Inductive reasoning was where you looked at patterns or examples to come up with a conclusion or conjecture. Now, when you're using inductive reasoning, since you're just looking at patterns or observations, your conclusion might be true, but it might not. With deductive reasoning, you're using facts, rules, definitions, or properties to reach your conclusions. So usually your conclusion is going to be a valid conclusion. So here we're going to start by talking about the law of detachment. It's called detachment because it's like you're detaching or unattaching the hypothesis and the conclusion. So you're reading a statement, if and then if your hypothesis is true, then your conclusion must be true. So you have to verify that they're confirming the hypothesis is true. If they confirm the hypothesis is true, then your conclusion is also true. So here it says if a car is out of gas, that's my hypothesis. The conclusion says then it will not start. And then they confirmed the hypothesis. So Sarah's car is out of gas. So then the conclusion that her car will not start must be true. So you're detaching the hypothesis and conclusion. If the hypothesis is true, then your conclusion must be true. So we're going to practice using the law of detachment to check if these next statements are valid or not. Number 1 says two angles supplementary to the same angle are congruent. So our hypothesis is that two angles are supplementary to the same angle. Our conclusion is that, well, then they are congruent. Our next statement says angle A and angle C are supplementary to angle B. That matches what the hypothesis is saying. So the conclusion that angle A is congruent to angle C must also be true. So this is a valid statement. And we know this because the hypothesis was true. Question 2 says if Helen's going to work, so that's my hypothesis, the conclusion is then she is wearing pearls. Now if you look at the next part, it says Helen is wearing pearls. That does not confirm my hypothesis. It actually confirms the conclusion. For law of detachment to be done correctly, you're checking if your hypothesis is true. So here when they're saying she's going to work, that's not necessarily a true statement. She could be wearing pearls to go out to dinner, to go somewhere else. So this is invalid. And that's because we did not confirm that the hypothesis was true. So again, you want to make sure when you're using law of detachment that they're telling you the hypothesis is true. Question 3 says if a number is divisible by 6, so that's my hypothesis, the conclusion then is then the number is divisible by 3. My next statement says that 18 is divisible by 6. If you notice, that confirms my hypothesis. So we have a number that's divisible by 6. So the conclusion that 18 is divisible by 3 must then be true. So this is a valid statement. And that's because the hypothesis is true. Question 4, they give us the hypothesis if a pet is a rabbit, the conclusion is then it eats carrots. Our next statement says Jenny's pet eats carrots. If you notice, here they're actually saying something that has to do with the conclusion, not the hypothesis. So this is going to be an invalid statement. And again, that's because there's other pets that might eat carrots, so this is not necessarily true. So it's very important when you're using the law of detachment that you're checking that the hypothesis is true. Here we did not confirm that the hypothesis was true. So because we did not confirm that, we could not confirm that the conclusion about her pet being a rabbit was also true. So law of detachment, you have to confirm the hypothesis is true. That's the main part.